Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to My Golf DNA, where we help you get better at the game of golf by giving you all of the information as to what you're doing, why you're doing it, and most importantly, we're out here on the driving range today teaching you how to get the job done. Today, we're going to be doing a drill I call the sit down and stay down drill. This is a drill that's going to teach you and help you get your upper body and your head moving properly in the downswing so that you don't have that nagging fault of early extension, so that you have the ability to be able to pull power out of the ground the proper way, so that you have a really good solid posted up position at impact so that you can transfer speed into impact like you've always wanted to. Do me one big favor though, before I start teaching you the sit down, stay down drill, if you are brand new to the channel, please take a moment of your day and just head down below and subscribe to the channel. And let us know if you have any questions or comments on today's drill as well. And if you are really enjoying what you're seeing here on My Golf DNA, leave us a thumbs up. It helps us out. Now, let's get back to work. So as most of you know, the way that I like to do business when it comes to teaching you these things is I like to do things in threes, and I give you very specific checkpoints that you're going to be on the lookout for from one step to the next here, because it's important that you not only just do these movements and try to mirror what I'm doing, but it's very important that you get connected to them and they show up on camera the real way here so that you have the ability to be able to take this stuff out to the driving range. Now, what we're going to do here in step number one is we're going to put our golf club down for a little bit, and we're going to get ourselves into a good setup position with our golf ball down on the ground. And I want you to follow this exact protocol. Our first step in this process is to be able to do some warm-up reps where we have our arms across our shoulders from a good setup position, and we're going to go through a load and sit process with a very good understanding of how the pressure is going to be moving through our feet. Now, our job here is to basically make a good load process for about 10 to 15 reps before we start adding the sit component in. And the reason why I like to do that is because you have to have something loaded up in order to be able to unload it properly. So we're going to do about 10 to 15 reps just to get ourselves warmed up. This is good for the body to do it like this. So I want you to go ahead and have a golf ball down on the ground. Imagine you're holding a golf club there, and just take your hands in your arms and cross them over your shoulders. And I want you to push down in your trail ankle. Okay, so my right ankle here, and I just want you to turn your rib cage as much as you possibly can, keeping your head fairly level. I don't want to see any vertical movement from the head. If it drops down ever so slightly, you're totally fine. But what you want to feel here in these 10 to 15 reps or so is you want to feel a bulk of your pressure, about 90% of your pressure underneath your right heel, right ankle area, and you want to feel your midsection really coiled up. So we are all loaded up, we've got our body really warmed up. Now it's time to continue the warm-up part of this process and get ourselves unloaded. Now, this is going to feel like a very big movement at first. And this is a very big piece of this puzzle because a lot of you at home, when you want to make real change, you've got to push yourself to exaggerate some things here to be able to get the light bulb above your head and get that sort of aha moment going for yourself, if you understand what I'm saying. Now, what our job here is in this step, to complete step number one before we start adding the golf club back in here, is we need to be able to do reps that are going to look just like this. So we're going to load our weight to our trail side and turn, and we're going to unload and sit down on our lead side, but we're also going to make a few pumps up and down once we get our weight there. And the reason for that is I want you to start creating some awareness of the post-up movement that's going to be taking place. Now, if you watch that closely, what you're going to notice is what? Well, my head and my chest was going up and down. Don't worry, again, that's exaggerated. That's going to be fixed as we get into step number two and we start making this a real thing. So how we're going to do this, though, is we're going to have some very specific checkpoints and ways for you to create this sort of movement. Now, our job in the golf swing is to load and unload. Now, what I like to do here to help simplify the process is I like to think about where the pressure is moving through in your foot. So I just had 90% of my weight parked underneath my right ankle. What I'm going to be doing is getting my weight parked underneath my left ankle now. Now, if you think about where the pressure is moving through in your foot, and you do this with a sit-down movement onto that lead side, and at that same time, you try to keep your upper body wound as much as you possibly can. So my shoulders are wound here, my chest is pointed away from the target. If you focus on that weight moving down into your left ankle, like you're trying to drill a hole into the floor with your left ankle, and you keep your upper body wound as much as you can, now what you've just forced yourself to do is learn how to sequence the downswing properly and use your big muscles without really having as much awareness of them as you want to have. Think about this for a second. If I get up to the top of the swing and I just start sliding left, my weight is going to be into that forward part of the foot. I'm going to feel a lot of stress on my knee. And I know there's a lot of golf instructors that teach you that they want you to land forward and start to push the hip back. I'm never going to get on board with that, because honestly, when you start introducing a closed hip slide, or you start trying to force the hip to rotate from the toes, a lot of you at home are going to start changing your central balancing pivot joint down to your knee. And I'm not here to blow anybody's knees out. We're here to use our hips properly in the golf swing so that we can rotate them and we can be powerful at that same time. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go through about 15 reps. We're going to start out a little bit slow and clunky. But the focus points are, again, moving 90% of my weight from my right ankle and sitting 90% of my weight down onto my left ankle. Now when I do this, every single rep, I want to try to keep my upper body as wound as I possibly can. And when I get that 90% of my weight underneath my left ankle, I just want to pump up and down. I want to push my weight into the ground for 2 or 3 reps. And you're going to start to feel your glutes back here, your hamstrings, your quads. You're going to start to feel a lot of activation there. Those are good muscles to have for you, especially when it comes to being able to move at speed here. Okay? So let's go ahead and go through 10 to 15 reps with me. So load right, sit down, pump up and down. You want to push, feel where you're pushing from. You should be pushing down in your left ankle. 90%, my chest is still closed, push down. My head and my chest are coming up with it. Okay, let's do a couple more. All right, step number 2. This is where things get a little bit more complex. And if any of you have ever been to the gym and you've been into one of those core machines where you can kind of hang on to 2 bars and you can rotate your trunk back and forth in your core and keep your shoulders nice and straight, that's basically what you're going to be trying to feel here to be able to finish off the job. Now, when you think about what's happening in the golf swing, what we're doing is when we start to unload and we start to create that post-up movement, that post-up movement is really being driven through the legs and the core. It's not a movement that you want connected to your head and your chest. We have to be able to stay down because we don't want a lot of the bad sort of things that come out of when you start moving into extension. You start creating a lot of plane shift and then your hands start reacting to this. So we're going to still use what we just learned in step number 1, where we are unloading down onto our lead side, but now we're going to work on staying down, and we're going to work on making this a realistic movement by adding in the rotational force back to the mix. Because what you just learned in step number 1 is basically a whole lot of horizontal natured force and vertical force. Okay? Now, what we want to remember is that our hips are going to rotate because of what our core is doing. Our core is going to be rotating our hips for us. So I want you to think about, as you make that sit down movement, is that you're going to rotate the hips back, okay, as you're pushing down in that left ankle and making that pump move, and you're going to really force your head and your chest to stay down over the golf ball. It's going to feel a little bit uncomfortable for a lot of you because a lot of you want to be able to feel yourselves come up and out of posture. But we're going to do this real slow at first. Remember, the key points are to load and unload. So load, sit down, and stay down. So here we're going to go ahead and do about 15 to 30 reps apiece. And we're going to start out a little bit slow and chunky just so you can kind of grab a hold of what we're doing here. Okay? So we're going to load. We're going to sit down. And as I'm pumping my left foot into the ground, I'm going to use my core to rotate my hips back, but I'm keeping my head and chest down now. I'm forcing my head and chest to stay down over the shot. You're going to feel like you are way too close to the golf ball here. Load, sit down. So your hips should be about 45 degrees open and your shoulders should be nice and square to your target line. Load, sit down, stay down. Load, sit down, stay down. let me give you a little recap. And I know a lot of you at home are probably thinking to yourself, well, Chris, I just want to hit golf balls. I don't want to do 60 reps. It's not going to take you that long to do what I just taught you to do, especially when you become proficient with this. If you want to get better at the game of golf, you got to have a good practice program and you got to learn how to practice properly. And I know a lot of you at home struggle with this because I see it on a day-to-day basis. But what we're going to do here in step number 3 is we're going to start actually using the golf club and we're going to start making some real swings. And I would always start out, if you have one of these, get one. It's an impact bag. Don't get this exact one that I have because it breaks at the seam all the time. There's all kinds of them online that are good ones. But what we're going to do here is we're going to set the impact bag up where the golf ball would be. And we're going to start getting comfortable with the idea that, hey, you know what? I can stay down and I can make this movement happen that I just worked on in steps 1 and 2. And I can snap the club into this bag without having to be tense in my hands and my arms. A lot of you, when you first start doing a drill of this nature, you load up and you start to sit down and you're staying down, you're going to feel like you don't have enough space for the hands and arms to pass in front. You're going to feel like you're going to hit it fat. You're going to feel like you need to do something different with your body. You need to trust that you can stay down in the shot and understand that there's going to be some shallowing moves that are going to help you here to fit that space to make sure that you don't hit it in the ground. What I mean is that as my hands and arms start to work down in front of my body and my hip is opening up, that's helping me increase the tilt to my spine. And as I'm starting to release the club, I'm letting the club swing. I'm not dragging the handle. I'm not doing anything in the world of tension with my hands and my arms that's going to try to manipulate the club. So what I want you to do is I want you to do maybe 10, 12, 15 reps or so, just getting comfortable with letting the club snap into the bag and staying down. If you hit any where it's really fat, or you hit like a lot of the ground before where the bag is, then there's a pretty good chance that you're a little bit out of sequence and you need to go back into steps 1 and 2 and get yourself working through the reps in that strategy and then slowly come back into rep number 3 here, or step number 3, I should say. So here's what we're going to do. So we're going to go ahead and load up. We're going to sit down and stay down. And we're going to make sure that our head and chest stay down over the impact bag. And we're going to get really connected to the movements now. So just load, sit down, stay down. Okay? Am I still in those same impact positions that I just worked on in step number 2? If I am, I'm still continuing on with the drill. If I'm not, I need to take the golf club out of there and I need to go back and be disciplined. Okay? I'm going to do one more and then I'm going to start trying to hit some shots with it. Okay, feel pretty good about it. Take the bag out of there. Now here's how I'm going to practice this. I'm probably going to do just a 1-to-1 today. So 1 practice swing, 1 golf ball swing. I don't want you using that ratio for yourself. What practice swings are good for is making sure that you just take all of the focus points that you really had in your brain and start making it a real swing. And once you get really good sort of connection to those movements, then reward yourself and hit a golf ball. Your practice sessions don't need to be centered around hitting 93 balls over here and having 200 really bad practice swings. Get really good high quality practice swings, hit fewer golf balls, hit higher quality shots, and then as you get really good at this stuff, increase the number of balls you hit in the session and you're going to be a much happier golfer. So let's go ahead and do another rep here. So my focus points are load, sit down, and stay down. Okay, felt pretty good there. I'm going to reward myself. Okay? I love this drill because it forces you to get out of your comfort zone. It forces you to feel yourself getting closer to the golf ball. It forces you to feel the big muscles really driving the sequence. Load. Remember, load, sit down, and keep your butt down. You don't need to come up and out of the shot to make space. Once you get unloaded, you got that pressure under there, stay connected to it, stay down in the shot, and let the club swing, and you're gonna be much happier when this is all said and done. See you guys in the next video.